It's the same exact today where with the music choice, I can already tell what Red Hot Chili Peppers song you guys are going to play. It's Under the Bridge. If it's a classic rock station, you guys are going to play Hotel California because we've only heard that song a cajillion times. God forbid you play a slightly deeper cut.
It's been said that if you stop being curious, you stop growing. I'm David Wylie, and I've got questions. This is Dave Wants to Know. Let's dive in.
Well, welcome everybody to Dave Wants to Know. And man, this is a face I have not seen in a long time. Our guest today, Kevin Dalton. Hey, buddy.
Hey, Dave. Man, it is so great to hear your voice, to see your face. It's been close to 20 years, right?
Is that amazing? So Kevin and I worked together on a morning show, radio morning show back in the day in the Los Angeles area. I was the news guy and you were kind of the wacky sidekick.
Yeah. It was Cola 99.9. I believe we were playing the greatest hits of all times. And
we were.
Yeah, it was like about as traditional a morning show as you could get. It was great. Brian Casey and the Wake Up Bunch, which is it gives you an idea of what the show is going to be anyway, to begin with. So yeah, it was Brian Casey, you were the straight newsman, and I was the wacky Shaggy who came in and was always into hijinks and things like that.
Yeah, that's right. Your name was Shaggy, like the Scooby-Doo character, and that you really did kind of personify that kind of guy.
Well, that's it's so funny. I absolutely love radio. It's always been my first love. I started out, I had a few jobs, and I started working in telecommunications, and that was pretty much what I was going to be doing for the rest of my life, driving around listening to people on the radio, and I'm like, man, I want to do that. And finally one day got an internship. I quit my job and I got an internship at Cola's sister station, KCAL 96.7, started working there. And you start learning about radio and the ins and outs and roles that are played. And the wacky third voice, the guy who was always getting into trouble. And so yeah, once you're kind of that role, you invest in that role, or at least try to play up the wacky Shaggy, like from Scooby-Doo. And that's the simple name. It gives people the simple is like, oh, okay, that guy's gonna be dumb and funny. And so that's what radio does, kind of gives you if you're gonna be the wacky guy, give you a simple name and go be that guy.
So how'd you get in radio?
Well, I had a regular job. I was working in telecommunications at the time and driving around in a truck hundreds of miles a day through Los Angeles doing service, listening to people on the radio doing what I wanted to do. And so finally one day I quit my job and got an internship at a radio station, which was the sister station to Cola 99.9, where we originally met and started working. Yes, it was 96.7 KCAL rocks. So I got an internship and I started stapling concert tickets and sending faxes when we still did both of those things, and started learning about the roles of radio. It's not just guys who get on the radio and just talk for hours on end. There's a lot of planning and people play their particular parts. And when we worked together, I was Shaggy. That was my name. And because I needed to be the wacky, silly sidekick, that was the part I was playing. And I got assigned the name, and that's where I went. I dove headfirst into it. I mean, I was just so dang happy to be on the radio full time. You could have named me anything, and I would have been wildly happy to undertake whatever the name and or personality was.
I'm curious because we had Jimbo on, I don't know, a few weeks ago, and he was on the morning show at KCAL. and he was a larger than life personality. I wonder if when you worked there, did you get some of that vibe from him or learn anything from him?
Oh man, yeah. So when I worked at KCAL, that was really kind of my first tiptoe into being on air at all. Was working with the Morning Stiffy with Stu, Tiffany, and Jimbo, and
Right.
absolutely, it's where I was talking about the roles, and it's exactly the same. I mean, where Stu was the conductor, he steered the ship, he kind of kept the beats going. That was the same thing that Brian did with us.
Yep.
Tiffany was news per se. She was the straight man on the show, the information. That's exactly what you were. Jimbo was he was the wacky, crazy sidekick. I was
Right.
Shaggy. That's
Yeah.
what I was. And this isn't just a blueprint, something that we used within the building between KCAL and Cola. This is every morning show,
Yes.
every duo. They all have their beats and their patter and their roles. And once you get into radio and you understand this stuff and the formatics behind it, everything you listen to is exactly the same. I can get dropped into any small market in the country, turn on the radio, and which I love doing. I love listening to, just DJs just talk, because it's a lost art. But I know when they're ramping up into a song, or when they're in between songs and they're going to talk it up, or when it goes silent for 30 seconds and I'm like, oh man, somebody didn't push the right button, or they've got it in mute and they're out smoking a cigarette and they think the next song queued up. All of it is oh man, I just miss it so much.
That happened all the time. And it is funny, people that listen to the radio think, oh, you guys just get on there and you guys talk about stuff and everything. But it is really an art, because a lot of it, I won't say all of it, there is some improvisation, but a lot of it is planned, and then you kind of see where it goes,
Well, I mean, not to pull the curtain out from
back,
all radio shows, but it's like, you listen to the stuff, and Ryan Seacrest used to do Ryan's Roses all the time, and it's like anytime there's a prank phone call or a couple that's calling up, they're fighting about a first date, all of it's fake. all of it's an intern from the sales department calling in, or a service, or that's the beauty of radio. It is truly theater of the mind, where you could do or act out anything, and people went with it because it was radio. It was awesome.
I know there were times where we would ask the audience a question, what's the weirdest thing you've ever eaten or whatever. And if the phones weren't ringing, we'd have you go down the hall and call us, and you'd have, and people didn't know, and it was fun. And a lot of times it would get the phones ringing, that guy's a weirdo. What was that all about?
Yeah. Oh yeah. You know the things that you can say that will get other people to call, and it was almost like the original clickbait on the radio. You just say something just a little bit off and get someone else to call in, and then you can have a fun back and forth, and you got a segment.
I think one of the funnest and dumbest things at the same time I ever did in radio involved you. The magician David Blaine was doing this big televised thing where he was going to be drowned alive.
Yes.
You remember that? And so live on TV, they were going to put him in this box with water, and he was, going to try to somehow escape and everything. So we come up with this idea that we were going to have Shaggy, your character, drown alive in beer.
Yes. Yeah, so if I remember correctly, we had not the idea. This is the beauty of radio and why I love it so much. The idea, totally stupid, that I was going to, and I remember you photoshopped together like me in a beer bottle. And of course, this is like the early 2000s. This was revolutionary stuff. It was amazing. So we come up with this idea, and it was like, okay, how are we going to do it? Well, we had I'm not going to say a kiddie pool. It was a full-size pool or like a blow-up pool that let me in it. And we started filling it up with water, filled it up with a couple of beers. And the build up around it, I remember it was set up as if it was this huge event, and Brian Casey was on the air, and it was almost like a parade. They were talking about the bands that were coming through, the marching bands, and all the people, and then people started to show up to this wacky event because it was sounded so larger than life, and celebrities were showing up on the air. It's just stuff you could do on radio that you just can't do anymore. You can't do outside of that medium. It's so great.
And Brian was a real pro at just deadpanning, that deadpan humor. And he just, was in it all the way out. Shaggy getting ready now. He's got, he's going to enter the beer. No one's, he's been advised not to do this, but it was great. I don't think our boss was particularly thrilled with the idea, but they did let us do it.
He was never thrilled with anything that was out of the ordinary, and which frustratingly and sadly, I think, and I'm not putting it solely on him. I mean, it's every program director, everyone in radio. They are so afraid, and they rested on their laurels so much that technology just blew right past them. And I remember there were two huge conversations that I had with our boss, and one of which we were sitting in an Olive Garden, because of course when you work in radio you don't pay for food. You use the freebie certificates that were supposed to be given out on the air for a free lunch at Olive Garden. So we were eating at the Olive Garden, and sorry, radio people, I'm blowing it all up today. So we're talking about budgets for the year, and he was like, okay, going through everything. He's like, okay, bumper stickers. We spent, $15,000 on bumper stickers last year. What are we going to spend this year? And I said, I understand it's radio. You give out bumper stickers. That's what you have to do. But let's go out into the parking lot and look at the cars that have bumper stickers on them. Let's just take a random poll, and we go out into the parking lot. There wasn't a single car that had a bumper sticker on it. And I explained to him, okay, I think we can spend this a different way. I think there's a better way to do this to get the word out that would be more effective. And he was like, okay, so $15,000 on bumper stickers. I'm like, okay, nothing's ever going to change. And then
I confess I've never put the bumper sticker of any station I worked at on my car ever.
No, I get the idea behind it. It's always been done. And another conversation, we needed a new station vehicle, and went in and talked, and it's radio, so every single car dealer in town is already advertising. We've got these connections. Let's get ourselves a cool raised truck. It was the early 2000s. That's what everyone was rocking. And let's switch it up, because we've got vans right now, and it's let's go down to Fairview Ford and check out a raised F-150. He's like, well, I think we're gonna get a van. I said, well, okay, we got two vans already. Walk me through the van process. I get it. Storage, you got easy ups, all the speakers in there for promotions, but we could do that with a truck, arguably. And he said, you don't understand. You didn't work in radio in the 70s. Now, in the 70s, you couldn't just buy a van. They were commercial. And then all of a sudden, they were available to the public, and they were cool. And that's why we use them as station vehicles. And I was like, oh crap, it's 2004, and you're banking on this van from the 70s that's going to, that's always going to be the answer for station vehicles. And I'm like, wow, we're really in trouble as an industry. And there was no need to innovate. There was no need to do anything else because, bro, we're in every single car that's ever been manufactured. What else is anyone going to listen to?
Yeah. Yeah.
And that was the vibe. I remember when it was HD radio first came out and they were offering KCAL a free HD transmitter to go out, to start, you could like do a digital display within cars and things. They didn't want it. They didn't want this free digital FM transmitter because there was no need to. There was no competition. So radio sat there forever, giving everyone the finger. We're in cars. We don't need to do anything. And then all of a sudden, Sirius XM came, and that was a, satellite radio was a bit of a shakeup. But then now everyone's got Spotify. Everyone's got every single song, every single piece of music that's ever been composed in my pocket that I can put in any single order at the snap of a finger.
Right.
Dude, and they spent no time innovating or trying to make themselves better. And all of a sudden they're in a dinosaur that I can plug my phone into that car. And the only reason I listen to radio now is literally as a novelty because I love it because I used to work there. It's sad.
Or there's a personality on the radio that you enjoy.
Yes,
but those are few and far between now, unless you're listening to maybe talk radio or something like that. Of all the people,
cut it short.
Yeah.
Roll calls. Go, 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 go. We got to get to traffic and move through everything else. When it's like, well, I'm going to listen to a podcast and I'm going to listen to a conversation that could be 15 minutes or 45 minutes. It's not 6 minutes because that's the amount of time that we have between this commercial break. That's and 6 minutes is a hilarious amount of time. It's probably like 3 or 4. And they're still just we're bound by these same rules because Arbitron, who does the ratings, says that we need to talk here and play music here and do this. And it's like you're hamstringing yourself based on these rules that you are imposing upon yourself. And it's just a disservice to a medium that still has a tremendous potential, I think.
Yeah, I don't know because, like you said, now you look back at these stations, and back when I was there, it was we got to play more songs. We got to get more songs in every hour, and I'm like, these are songs that everybody's heard. Like you said, we can get them on our phone at any time. So why are they listening to us? Well, you have 30 seconds to grab them. So we get 30 seconds or a minute break to. It's just. It was not good. A good scene.
Yeah, it's the same exact today where with the music choice, it's like, look, if you guys are going to, I can already tell what Red Hot Chili Peppers song you guys are going to play. It's Under the Bridge. If it's a classic rock station, you guys are going to play Hotel California because we've only heard that song a cajillion times. God forbid you play Seven Bridges Road or, a slightly deeper cut. And this is what I think could save radio. I always thought of it as radios are people on the radio should be the music experts. If I have a problem with my toilet and I call a plumber into the house, I don't want the plumber to just look at me and go, well, what is it that you like? What are your thoughts? You like the Hotel California version of toilets? I'm like, no, you're the expert. You've been doing this for 25 years. Please tell me what I need to do. And that's what I wish music was also, and radio stations, and took a chance. Instead of playing the same Stone Temple Pilots song for the cajillionth time in a row, let's get a little deeper into it. Let's play something maybe you've heard of because you love music and you want to share it with the people, and all of that autonomy within, within radio is, of course, was gone long before I got there, because no one picks their music or anything like that either. It's all selected for
Computer.
you.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. My feeling is, and maybe it sounds like yours differs, but I think terrestrial radio, that being, the traditional broadcast radio, is dead. Um, I know dozens and dozens of people from my days in radio. I know exactly two that are still on the radio. Uh,
Wow.
Out of all of those, I don't know. You sounds like you think there's still hope. I don't know.
I'm an eternal optimist about everything, which which is great at times. I think there is hope if there were people within the industry who felt the same, but I think it's still just full of the same exact program directors who have been doing it since the 60s and the 70s and the 80s. And, for them personally, why change? It has been working. It pays the bills. They still, they're stuck in their heyday. I mean, I had a program director I worked for that I could tell when he peaked in his career, because that's when his clothing and his haircut stopped, at that moment in 1984. And I'm like, okay, I'm not going to be able to get you past that, because I can't get your wardrobe or your hairstyle past that. So there's no hope for updating the music, and it's like, oh, here's Ozzy Osbourne's Crazy Train again. There's no, it is the same stuff in radio. It's self-inflicted.
And ironically, and I don't necessarily mean this as a bad thing, but the station we came from, much of the management and even the air talent is the same as it was 20 years ago. And again, I don't mean that necessarily in a bad thing. They're getting good numbers, I guess, because people are advertising and they're still in business. But
Sure.
um, yeah, I, like I said, I don't like to talk negatively of anyone,
No,
especially people
and
I've
I'm
worked with.
not. No, and this isn't. And yes, and thank you for clarifying, because this isn't anyone at KCAL or Cola. This, I drive around through Boise and I'm listening to radio stations do the exact same thing. I will
Yeah.
get in the car at the same time and I'm like, oh man, you guys are playing System of a Down, Chop Suey, the same time at the same day, every single day. I mean, all radio stations essentially have fallen into this trap. I wish there would be someone out there who would take a brave risk and just go, look, we are going to make a top 100 list of songs that we are going to put a moratorium on for 5 years. We're not going to play Nirvana Smells Like Teen Spirit. We're going to play Bleach instead, because the song is great and it's never played on the radio.
Right.
And then let DJs, let personalities be personalities again, and give Arbitron the finger and go, look, guess what? We're going to talk for 8 minutes and then we're going to roll some commercials and we're going to do the math and we're not going to be beholden to this. And I think all of a sudden you would have at least pique some interest. If radio wants to continue this slow descent until they just bury themselves into the ground, that's great. That's the trajectory they are headed in. But damn, someone try something different. Some brave program director out there go, okay, let's not hit the repeat button on the last week that we did on the last week before that. And let's be radio people again. That's why you got into this business. Nobody got into radio to play Hotel California 7 times a day. No one did, yet everyone is doing that. It
got
boggles
into
my
it.
mind.
I got into it, and I don't know about you, but I wanted to entertain and inform people, and that doesn't come from playing, Chicago at 10 after the hour every hour, which seemed to be the case.
No, it was, and you were always like the consummate newsman. You were in there and you were organized and going through your paperwork. And I was literally Shaggy. I show up at the last minute. All right, what are we doing today, guys? So it was my job was my job of wacky had a little less show prep than you did.
So let's fast forward. So after that, you left. I think you did go to another station after that for a time.
So like radio does, I had an opportunity, wasn't looking for it, to go to Sirius XM to work for Playboy Radio, and I was in my, I don't know, mid-20s at the time, and just the idea of having a business card with the Playboy logo and my name on it was too difficult to pass up. So I remember I got the offer, went in Monday, talked to our program director about it, and I said, 2 weeks, I wasn't looking to do this. And he was like, hey, no problem, come back tomorrow, and we'll do the show for 2 more weeks. And then I get home and I got a call an hour later. Is like, hey, don't come back in again, we'll pay you, have a nice life. And that's how radio is.
Wow.
I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, so you don't get to go back on the air once you quit. I get it. So and that was really the goodbye. I was there one day, left for work, went home, and they were like, well, don't come back. So started the new gig early. So I worked at Sirius XM for 3 or 4 years, started producing shows for Playboy Radio, and in the end I was back to the third man again
Yeah.
in the Playboy Morning Show. So we were like the second biggest morning show on Sirius XM, right behind Howard Stern, which doesn't
Wow.
really matter because
Right.
because Stern is so gigantic and huge. But I was on there with Kevin Kline, who is now the morning show host at K Rock in Los Angeles,
Oh,
and
cool.
I was Salty Dalty. Because we were both named Kevin, so obviously that would have been a
Right.
huge confusion. So I was Salty Dalty on the air there. Was at Playboy for, I don't know, 3 or 4 years. Funny enough, as far as getting let go, I got let go on the air of that
What?
job. My program director was so out of it, wasn't even paying attention. So back to a little radio behind the scenes.
Uh-huh.
We Everyone was heading out on vacation. I was staying behind and playing some pre-recorded stuff. So everyone left about an hour early for the show. I'm in there running some bits that we had done. We'd pre-recorded some calls and they required some sound effects in the moment. So I'm playing them live on the air while this pre-recorded bit is playing. So I'm in there working away Friday, hitting sound effects. And my boss comes in, sits down. He's like, hey, Kevin, how you doing? Good, boss. Ding, hitting sound effects still. He's like,
Right.
well, we got to let you go. And he goes through the whole entire spiel. The whole entire time, I'm still hitting sound effects because we're on the air.
Yeah.
And I've got to make sure that this bit plays right, because if there's no sound effects, it's not going to work. So I'm literally getting fired from my job on the air as I'm playing sound effects to execute the bit. He had no idea. And I'm like, hey, this is probably an indicator that's a good thing, that we're not going to be working here anymore. So yeah, I got let go there. The station folded pretty quick after that. Budget stuff. I wasn't, I
Yeah.
should probably say it was budgetary. I wasn't,
Budgetary.
yeah, I mean, the opportunity presented, but so from there I ended up at TMZ, and I worked in the newsroom. I worked for their tour department for
With Harvey.
3 or 4 years. Yes, with Harvey. Oh yeah, Harvey and I go way back. And then from there, started working at TMZ. That's what really got me into politics more, which sounds kind of funny. It wasn't really TMZ per se. It was really where I was working at the time. Started working on Hollywood Boulevard and really just seeing the inundation of homelessness and just the city. I'd always visited Hollywood before, but to work in it and spend time with it all the time, I was like, okay, this place has changed a lot.
So those who don't know, TMZ, I don't know if they still do this, but they host bus tours. You do a TMZ bus tour for tourists, and you take them around and show them the sights. And so you were kind of hosting that on this bus tour.
Yeah, I started out as a tour guide, ended up the operations manager over the TMZ tour, but that's what it was. If you wanted to come into town and see the TMZ tour, we'd go by all the, you know, the Laugh Factory where Kramer became infamous. You know, we'd go by the Chateau Marmont. I mean, all the big hot spots through town, spot a celebrity or two. I mean, if you're into TMZ, it was a very, very fun tour, probably still is. But I had to work on Hollywood Boulevard and really was introduced to the homelessness that was just, it infested the boulevard and the whole entire city. And, you know, operating in Los Angeles, you see the homelessness up until then, and it became just a backdrop. You know, whenever you exit a freeway, there's going to be someone standing there. There will be a large encampment behind them. You're going to go down the street. There's going to be RVs. There's going to be more homeless people. That's just kind of what it was. But when I started working on Hollywood Boulevard, I really started meeting and knowing and understanding some of the people who were out there experiencing homelessness. There was one guy, I've told the story before, his name was Derek. And when we first opened up our shop down there, he would just come in, and just a huge, gigantic man, and just start screaming and yelling and bellowing and freak everyone out. Everyone would go running. We'd call the cops. They'd never show up, and he'd take off. And finally, I learned how to see him coming, and I could kind of usher him out before anything happened. And then one day we just started talking. And then from there, Derek and I would have these crazy conversations as I'd be walking in from the parking structure into the office. I'd run into Derek, see how he was doing. He'd tell me about his favorite Amy Grant song, or how his theory about how Jabba the Hutt's slave girls were the ones who dug the Rancor pit. I mean, he had thoughts about all sorts of things. And then one day he told me about how he was a crew instructor at a college back in DC. And then all of a sudden I was like, oh man, Crazy Derek has a backstory. He has a history. He had a life before whatever this was. And then it wasn't just kind of an epiphany with Derek, it was everyone else. So it was seeing the people on the freeway. It was seeing everyone else that I would run into. I was like, oh man, I don't care anymore what got you here. You need help. And I started looking around locally, and it was Eric Garcetti who was the mayor at the time, and he was terrible. Gavin Newsom was our governor at the time, and he was terrible. And I just started documenting what I was seeing and talking about it more. And, you know, it eventually led to me running for Board of Supervisors in Los Angeles, who I got absolutely obliterated by Hilda Solis.
But I want people to picture this: a guy who was shaggy and salty dalty on the radio, running for the Board of Supervisors. Were you serious, or was this one of those kind of comedian things like, what was it, Pat Paulson? I'm aging myself here, but back in the 70s, always ran for president.
No,
or was this a legit?
You know, this was absolutely legitimate. This started out as I was going to run for mayor, because everyone who was currently doing the job was abysmal. And that kind of worked into a real campaign where someone said, hey, look, there is actually a position open for Board of Supervisors. And my whole entire life, I didn't know what a Board of Supervisor was until COVID hit. And all of a sudden, we're recognizing that these Board of Supervisors are shutting down the beaches and shutting down restaurants. And there are now 5 people who are in charge of 10 million people. And they have so much power that they wield, and and there's zero political parity. It's supposed to be a non-political position, but there are four very, very obvious Democrats and one teetering Republican on there. So anything remotely common sense just gets voted down, and everything was just getting shut down. And it was eye-opening. So the opportunity came to run. Someone said, no one's running against Hilda Solis. So I was like, well, hey, she was a former Obama Secretary of Labor, I believe. She's been in the position for 2 years. I have no business outside of a ton of passion to run. Let's do this. So my little grassroots campaign that I started on what was Twitter at the time. This was kind of interesting. 2 days after I said that I was running, my Twitter account all of a sudden fell behind a sensitive content barrier.
Really?
And everything that I posted would come up sensitive content. If you went to my account, it would say, this profile has sensitive content. If you want to see it, go ahead and click through, which is troubling for someone who's trying to secure a vote and get someone to trust them.
Right.
It looks bad. So even through that, started raising enough money to at least do the filing fee, which was $2,500. $2,500 just to get the paperwork. So at that
Right.
point, you now can start collecting signatures and things like that. I mean, the process and expense to run is wild. So I was eventually, someone said, hey, this Twitter account looks bad. You can't have this, where it has the sensitive content barrier. And I think I had like, I don't know, 75,000 followers. It was a
Wow.
big deal to
Yeah.
just give up. But I was like, okay, let's walk away. Let's build a new Twitter account around the account. I let everyone know on the other one. I said, hey, I'm abandoning this one. Put follow me over here. And I think 10 or 12,000 people pretty quickly followed me over there. And within a week, bam, I was under another sensitive content barrier behind my new account.
Interesting.
And I don't want to be the guy calling election interference 4 years after the fact, but it was just wildly suspicious that that would happen. So
Well, they've more or
Hilda,
less have admitted that they did it at least on the presidential level. And so why wouldn't they do it on a local level?
It makes perfect sense for them to do that also. As I was talking about, the board of supervisor position is so insanely powerful and just flies right under the radar. Nobody knows
When
what it is.
I know when I was in journalism school, I still remember this. They said, you better know your board of supervisors. They're known as the five little kings because they
Yes.
have so much power. The five little kings. So
Yeah,
how many
forget
votes did you end
mayor.
up getting?
24,000 votes, something like that. I ended up in a statistical tie for second. There was a guy who came in and dropped $40,000 out of nowhere at the last second, who I secretly believe was funded by Hilda Solis also, because there was a lot of shenanigans going on with the
Interesting.
other candidates in the campaign. But I raised $5,000. Hilda Solis raised $900,000. So I hate to say, of course she was going to win, but of course she was going to win. But man, I think about in 2022, had there been two other sensible people voted onto the board of supervisors, it changes the whole entire trajectory of the county. And the opportunity is up right now also. There are great people running for board of supervisor in Los Angeles now that aren't the same just corrupt
Retreads.
career politicians that are
Yep.
already there. But this machine is so strong and built up against anyone who's just wants to go out there and help. It's tough. It's sad.
So from that campaign, Twitter, I guess now X is that where your your pages that you have now, the Kevin Dalton?
Yeah, so that's where I'm at now. So the campaign, I'd mentioned I was under this sensitive content barrier, and I
Mhm.
was there for 2 years, well past the campaign.
Wow.
And then all of a sudden, it was April of 2024. And I don't know what happened. I was at about 30,000 followers. I just gained a few more in those years, but that sensitive content barrier was there the whole entire time. It didn't matter what I posted. I posted about my poor dog Sierra. She was 19 years old when she finally passed away. And I posted this beautiful video, and it was behind a sensitive content barrier because every single thing I posted was under sensitive content barrier. So anyway, for whatever reason, in a random day in April of 2024, the barrier was gone. I don't know what happened. Elon Musk had purchased X, or Twitter had changed to X. The barrier was gone, and I gained about 100,000 followers in the next, since then. And it's been absolutely crazy. It sounds so ridiculous, but I'm proud that I've like built this from the ground up. I've never paid for anyone. I've just talked, and for the first time, I've been able to just kind of freely say what I want, and I've never really worried about what happens. I'm sure trying to get a real job is going to be tough because people can just Google me and know every thought I've ever had for the past however many years. But I I love it. It's so freeing, and I hope more people do this. Drop the anonymous stuff and show who you are, and just speak what's in your heart. And that's it. It's really cool what's here.
That's so I kind of lost track of you after radio, and then all of a sudden I find you on Twitter or X, and I'm like, wait a minute, is this the same Kevin Dalton that I used to work with? And sure enough, it was. And I saw the amount of traction you were getting, and are you don't hold back when it comes to Los Angeles politics and California politics. So you mentioned your time at TMZ and your interactions with the homeless. I know that you have been very outspoken about how homelessness has been handled in California, and that's something that you post about all the time.
Yeah, it's I don't want to see people die on the streets. That doesn't feel right. That doesn't feel left. It doesn't feel red or blue. I don't know anyone else who wants more of that.
Right.
And it's handled so poorly, billions upon billions upon billions of dollars. And you see what's happening in Los Angeles, and I'm wildly passionate about it. I still have 40 years of friends, family, and community that live there. But down the street here in Boise, these knuckleheads are following all of these same exact policies that's happening in Los Angeles, that they're doing in Denver. Everything that's just made the homeless problem explode, that's what they're doing here. So when I make a big deal about what's happening in Los Angeles, what's happening with Gavin Newsom, number one, I want to make sure he doesn't travel any further east. He stays exactly where he is. But these policies are hurting my community. There's anywhere from 400 to 800 people, homeless people in the capital, in Boise, depending on who you talk to. That is such a wildly treatable number that we should be able to fix in months. We should go through, triage every single one of these people, figure out exactly what they need while there are still hundreds of them. Because if we let Mayor McLean continue to do what Gavin Newsom is doing and what Karen Bass is doing, that 800 is going to be 2,000 next year. It's going to be 5,000 the year after that. And then we're going to be sitting here by 2030 going, how is it that there's 30,000 homeless people in Boise? the problem, the problem spreads, the politics, the policies spread. And today in town, Mayor McLean and all of the city council went into mourning because they had to take the trans pride flag down off the flagpole out front. I don't care who you sleep with, what your politics are. Can we agree that the hundreds of homeless people on the street are a little bit more of a priority than the flag that's flying over City Hall? We can get to the flag. Let's deal with the homeless people, deal with the constant construction that's going on. Then we'll get to the flag at some point. But this is the priorities. This is, I hate to just put it on liberals and the Democrats, but they are following in these same exact footsteps, these same exact policies that have created unmitigated destruction. And I mean, it's a humanitarian crisis in California, and we're just inviting it here for some insane reason.
So people who follow you on X, like I do, it's, I will admit, it's pretty much you're posting little news clips or something from a press conference or something, and they're pretty snarky but dead on comments most of the time. What is your goal when you post this kind of stuff? What are you trying to get change, trying to make people mad? Because I'm sure people do get mad at you.
I want people to see this. I don't think they understand how bad it is. And they didn't, because I didn't. I know who I was. I was the guy who just drove by and walked by and didn't care because it was just the background. It's the boiling frog. It just happens so slowly you don't even know it. We travel back into California now, and it's insane. I mean, the resensitization that you get when you leave there, and then you really understand how desensitized you were to all of this stuff that's absurd. I mean, it's like, oh no, I know there's people living in sewers. It's like, no, hold on a second. Do you understand the words that you just said and how you said them? Like it's just grabbing a bowl of cereal in the morning and like that's totally normal. So I hate to say that I want people mad, but yeah, I do a little bit. I want them to see what's going on and go, this is egregious. I mean, I post, it blows me away how it'll get some traction and then just completely go away. Gavin Newsom's Care Court, billions of dollars on this plan that was supposed to get people that are homeless, that are mentally ill, into services. It was going to force them into services. Their families, who've been desperately trying to get them help, have no avenues. This was going to fix that. Billions of dollars years later, 22 people got helped in this through this program. And it's just billions of dollars. No one gets helped, and people go, it's just kind of par for the course. Everyone's so desensitized to the word billions now, it means nothing. So I keep shining a light. I have my snarky. I was, someone once said or I heard, I don't know, it's like Mark Twain or attributed to him, that said, if you want people to kill you, tell them the truth. If you want them to listen, make them laugh. So I tried to interject a bit of humor into everything. And even if it's something that you don't want to particularly laugh about, I want it to stick. I want you to see the thing. I want you to remember the thing. And for whatever reason, the algorithm or the people, they get it, and it works. And X has been really awesome.
Your tagline, and I'll paraphrase, I want to kind of start wrapping this up a little bit, but your tagline on your X account is, I try something to the effect of, I tried to work with the system, but now I'm doing it my way. How do we fix California? I think people on both sides of the aisle now realize it's not working. And I certainly hope that's the case. How do we fix California? Is it fixable?
It's voting different. And it's not just the big elections. I hate to say that governor and mayors don't matter much, but man, they really don't when it comes to the local stuff that really affects you on a daily basis. And the tip of the spear for that is Board of Supervisors. And if you're thinking right now, wow, I've never heard of what that is before, or I have no idea who those people are, go figure out who they are. And you know what? Drop $2 onto somebody's, into somebody's, donate to their campaign. $2 means the world to a true grassroots campaign. It means financial support for them. It means moral support. And there's people out there, and it really, a handful of elections could truly make a monumental difference in Los Angeles County, in the state as a whole. But we just got to do something different. And that's the hardest part, is getting people to educate themselves in the smallest way. And instead of just going in there and go, well, I'm going to vote D every single time because that's what I've always done, or I'm going to vote R every single time because that's what I've always done. It's a bad system both ways. If everyone votes R for, no matter who, or D no matter who, we're never going to get anywhere. So take 10 minutes. I mean, shoot, AI, well, maybe don't trust AI. Do a little research and find someone that maybe doesn't have an I next to their name. If we just made a concerted effort to just not vote for incumbents, anyone who has been doing this job before and you think the community is not heading in a right direction, don't vote for them. I think that's pretty much the simplest message out there. The machine is so big and overwhelming. Don't just contribute to it by throwing your vote away. Get out there.
I think people are listening to you. Just a couple of days before we had this interview, the California Post and the New York Post picked up one of your posts from X about an incident that happened at Dodger Stadium, two women fighting in the stands, and in your own snarky way, I'll let you kind of give the idea of what you said.
That was the it was the MasterCard commercial. It was people fighting at Dodger Stadium. It was to pay $800 for tickets, and $70 for drinks, and $75 for a souvenir cup, and just to be reminded why you don't go to Dodger Stadium anymore is absolutely priceless. And we went one time with my son when he was, I think, 3 or 4, and paid an ungodly amount of money for tickets so we could feel like we were safe and not up in section 309 where people are fist fighting and getting into chaos. So love Dodger Stadium, love the Dodgers, but the Dodger fans can get crazy.
Well, and I remember there were fights in the stands when I was a kid, but it's not. We went a couple years ago, and it's just crazy now. It's a different atmosphere. I love the Dodgers too, and I love Dodger Stadium, but it may be a while before I visit Dodger Stadium again. Hey, how do people find you? How do they follow you? And
find me on X. That's where I am 99% of the time. Follow me over at the Kevin Dalton. And that's about it. Hopefully some new exciting stuff coming up on the horizon. And damn, Dave, we cannot let this go another 20 years. That's ridiculous.
I know. I would love to have you back. And I love the stuff you're doing, it is funny. I encourage people, especially if you're concerned about California, but you also want to chuckle. The Kevin Dalton, it's a great follow, and has some great stuff on there. Kevin, great to see you, and good luck with all your endeavors in the future. And yeah, let's do this again.
Awesome. Great seeing you, Dave.
And that's a wrap on our conversation today. A huge thank you to Kevin Dalton for joining us and sharing his perspective on a number of topics. You can find him at The Kevin Dalton. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure you subscribe and leave a review. I'm Dave, and this has been Dave Wants to Know. We'll see you next time.